Hey, Richard Knudsen here again, and in this video I want to talk about a question I get asked about dynamic CRM workflows maybe more than any other single question. It has to do with waits and timeouts in workflows, and in particular what I want to talk about here is a workflow that stops and waits and waits and waits and listens to the clock tick until the system time achieve some milestone, typically with relation to a field on the record. So to illustrate this, let me show you a custom entity that I use a lot. I've got a subscription, e-learning content subscription custom entity here. This is the record that I'm on here. So it might be a workflow book purchase and somebody gets access to online content, but this could just as well be an opportunity with an estimated close date, or a case with a required resolution date, or really any kind of record that has a date that you have a process that needs to take action when, as I said, the system date gets close to this. So in this case, expiration date is the thing that I want to key off of. I might send a reminder out, or I might just assign a task to somebody internally to follow up with this as we approach this expiration date. So how is a workflow going to do that? We'll save and close that record and let's go make the workflow. So make a new workflow, and this workflow is going to be on the content subscription entity type, and let's call this subscription expiration. That's the name of my workflow. This workflow is going to be an automatic workflow. It's going to run on the record is created trigger, and I'm going to give it a scope of organization so that no matter who creates one of these subscription records, a content subscription, that will trigger this workflow. I might also expose it for on-demand use, just in case I want to apply it to some existing records. But let's minimize the workflow properties section and get to the meat of this workflow. The first thing that I'm going to do is add a step, and what I'll do is turn this first step, this is going to be my wait condition. So I choose wait condition. You may be familiar with a wait condition. I'll click this and open up the specify workflow condition dialog, and I think a lot of users get confused at this point because the temptation is to select the content subscription. Remember, that's the entity the workflow is written for. Select that, and I can see the expiration date here, so I choose the date field. I go over to the next column, and maybe I choose equals, it's the operator, but then I'm kind of stuck because what can I do here? This expiration date equals, well, the only items I have over here in the dynamic values section here are other date fields on the entity, and that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Going to expiration date equals expiration date. So I know this feeling. This is easy to get stuck here. That's because this is not the kind of wait condition we want for this scenario. Here, I want to drill through this local values section here and choose the workflow, and what I want here is a timeout. This is a special function. It's only available if you drill through the workflow local values section, and this is how you make a workflow stop and listen to the system clock. So I'm going to time out for a specified period. It's always going to be timeout equals, and now this will kind of start to make sense, I think. So what I want to do here is, in this case, maybe specify before, and I want to key off the expiration date, but I don't want to just do that. I want to do maybe a certain number of days before. So if you get into this little rut here, how do you change the value? Well, here's how you do it. You make sure that the operator, in this case before, is selected. Then you get the date field selected here. Then I'm going to choose, let's choose, how about 14 days before somebody's subscription expires. We're going to take some action. Then, so I've got everything all selected, then I double click. You take that approach, you'll get it right every time. It's a little odd because then the days value disappears here, but you can see it here. We've got this. So now that's the condition we want. That's how you do a timeout. It's just kind of well hidden. That's the only thing I don't like about that. Now the rest of this is pretty straightforward. This is then the action that we take. So in this case, maybe what I'll do is I'll create a record, and maybe this is a task record, and this task is simply going to be this one, simply follow up with expiring content subscription. Gotta spell that right. And if I wanted to, I could put a little bit of information in here regarding the way my content subscription works. It's got a many-to-one relationship to a contact, which I refer to as a subscriber. So I can put that in there. It's regarding that person, and I can put some other information about them, but you get the point. So I could put a due date in here if I wanted to do something off this. So let's, how about, we'll make a due date of 2 days after. Ooh, another good use of local values. How about workflow execution time? So this is going to be then due 2 days after this workflow runs. That is say after we've reached that timeout condition in the original entity. So we do that. We've got the task created. Now, who's that task going to be assigned to? At this point, I'm going to be the owner of it. But what I might want to do is assign that task record. Not this one. I want to assign this task created by the workflow, and let's put it into a special place that I've created just for it, a queue. Got subscription maintenance queue. So now whoever's the owner, for example, of that queue is going to monitor that on a regular basis, and we'll do that. Now, in a kind of gentler world, I would actually do something like put descriptions in here, but for now let's just save this and close it. And let's go ahead and find that entity and publish that lovely workflow. And once it's published, we'll be able to run it. Now, if I go back to my content subscriptions, let's find the content subscription that is mine that I'll experiment on. Here we go. Now remember, I exposed this workflow on demand so I can run it on this one. So we'll go ahead and run the workflow. Here it is, subscription expiration. Go ahead and run that workflow. Now, what the workflow will do when I run it is, as I specified, it's going to go into a wait state, which is to say for a few months here, won't do much at all. So this expiration date, 12/31. Go to workflows, and we can see that it's in the waiting state here. Open up that workflow. This makes it pretty obvious what's going to go on. So it's going to time out now until 14 days before, and then it'll do all this stuff. But let's take a little shortcut. You might ask yourself, what happens if the date changes here? So the workflow at this point will just sit there and wait. It won't do anything until we get to about December 14th. But that's too long for this 10-minute format that YouTube lets me upload videos in. So let's see if we can short circuit this a little bit. I want to do something like, how about 9/1? Let's change the date so that now we're within that 14-day window. Save this. Now what does that workflow do? This is actually pretty cool. Watch what happens here. Notice the workflow is now in progress. So it sat there and waited until the condition was satisfied, which now it is, because two things can cause that condition to be satisfied. The clock can tick and we can get closer to the original expiration date, or I can change the expiration date, and when I do that, the workflow's got the intelligence to know that that's the thing it's supposed to look for, so it goes out and does it. Here's workflow's in progress, and then you see it succeeded. And now if I go to queues, and look at here at subscription maintenance, boom, there's follow up with expiring content subscription. So that, my friends, is how you do a timeout condition in a workflow. Hope that was helpful. Richard Knudsen here, signing off.